in these classes is because these are the types of things that people get wrong if we don't look at them. Okay, so that's where we're working back from all the time in these grammar classes. We're always working back from what type of grammar, what type of language is in the OET writing that people have trouble with. And that's why we've got things like tense, passive, sentence structure, verb patterns, prepositions. So this week, oh, and articles, nouns, yeah, and there are other things to do with summarizing, nominalizing, being concise that are useful. But in this week, what we're going to talk about is we'll talk about this verb patterns idea. And if we make the progress that I think we'll make, then we'll start to look at how prepositions collocate with verbs, adjectives, and nouns towards the end of the week as well. By collocate, I mean which prepositions commonly are associated with which verbs, adjectives, and nouns. All right. So we're definitely going to talk about a little bit of that stuff when we talk about verb patterns. We're also going to mention the passive again. We will be definitely talking about the passive because we often use the passive in OET. And what we're talking about when we talk about verb patterns is verbs, okay? And if we're talking about verbs, then we're also talking about the passive. We're talking about tenses. We're talking about subject-verb agreement. Okay, so let's go and have a look at our study document. Okay, so let's just start with some basics. Okay, so a verb pattern is when we follow a verb with an action. Okay, that's the idea of it. So there are other times in English where we use multiple verbs in one sentence. So can anyone think of any auxiliary verbs in English?
Can,
What was that?
and,
Have, as,
Have,
primary auxiliary be,
have,
do,
be,
have,
do.
do.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are our main auxiliaries. So if you think about it, do, it could be, do you have a watch? Okay, do you have a watch? Well, if you think about it, there are two verbs. That's a verb and that's a verb. Okay. Are you going to the match? Okay. Are you going? Okay, so the verb to be, and then we've got this present participle. It doesn't have to be questions. I have broken my ankle. Okay, I've broken my ankle. These are examples in English where we have more than one verb in a sentence or more than one verb in a clause. Okay, so does anyone have any questions so far with what we've got on the page? No, it's quite basic, that, isn't it? It's quite basic. Though sometimes the basic stuff could be things that you haven't ever studied. Sometimes people learn English on the street or as they're going along and they've never done this, but let me know if you've got any questions about that. Then we've got modal verbs. I think Hussein, did you say can?
yeah, I said can, that I
Yeah.
mistaken,
So I can speak French.
but I can't.
I should not be here. Okay. I must wear a uniform. Okay. All of these are examples of using multiple verbs in a sentence. Can is a modal verb. Speak is a main verb. That's a way of thinking about it. Okay. So each time we've got multiple verbs. So the idea of verb patterns is not something which is super complicated. It's something that we do a lot in English. We often put verbs together in sentences. And I know that everyone here knows this one. I want to go to the bathroom. Okay, everyone knows that. There's no one in this room that has never said that. Okay, you've all said that. I want to go to the bathroom. You could replace that with need. You could replace that with a modal, semi-modal. I have to go. Okay, so this is a verb pattern. We've got need, and then we've got go there. But the thing is, it's not just need and go. This is where the pattern comes in. There are multiple ways that we put actions after verbs in English. In this case, it's need plus an infinitive, a full infinitive. So there's a few little words that we have to be aware of today, phrases that we have to be aware of, little forms of verbs that we have to be aware of today. And there's no doubt that it will open up other questions in your head and you'll ask me them. I'm sure it will happen. I've anticipated a couple of these different things that could come up, but hopefully you've got some other things that you'd like to talk about as well. And this is really useful for OET because we often do verb patterns in OET, and we often use verb patterns with things like the passive, which can make things a bit tricky. So we're probably going to do quite a lot of input today, and then as we go through Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll start doing loads of exercises for it, okay, and testing it, because ultimately there's only one way to learn this. Get the basics up front and then practice, practice, practice. I often say nobody taught me this when I was young. No one ever taught me this. I've taught myself this after becoming a teacher. So it's not something that people often talk about or refer to. It's just something that people learn to do through practice. All right, so let's do it. Okay, verb patterns. There are some rules. So I want us to, first of all, just have a look at this. I said earlier on that a verb pattern in English is a verb followed by an action. Okay, I'm not going to say verb followed by verb. I'm going to say it's a verb followed by an action. That's what we're calling it. And you'll see later why. Okay. Sometimes the same verb can be followed by different forms. Okay, so they can either be followed by infinitives, or does anyone know what else it could be followed by? A verb.
Gerund.
Gerund, ing.
Gerunds, yeah. Okay.
Past participle.
A verb followed by the past participle.
Noun phrase.
It could be, I guess.
It's only a modal verb plus a
Yeah, if it was an auxiliary verb like this one, yeah, I have broken, yeah, you can do it. But generally, no, it's going to be, what we're going to be dealing with over the next couple of days is verbs followed by infinitives and verbs followed by gerunds, okay? But sometimes there can be other things involved in there, like prepositions or objects. They can come in there and make things a bit tricky. So this is a good thing for us to know. Gerunds are ing. Okay, so we never say this, do we? No one ever says, I want going to the bathroom. No one ever says that. Everyone always says, I want to go to the bathroom. That's because want is never followed by ing in this case. Okay, we always say if it's a verb plus an action, it's I want to go. But there are other words.
Started and prefer.
Yeah, there are other verbs which are followed by gerunds. Okay, so sometimes it means the same thing when you follow with a different form. So prefer is a really good example of that. Okay, so I prefer waking up late to waking up early. Okay, now it changes the grammar a little bit, but I prefer to wake up, and then it would be a bit different instead of, I prefer to wake up late instead of waking up early. Okay, so the grammar is changed somewhat later on. There's a lot to talk about there. But here, I can say I prefer waking up late or I prefer to wake up late. And they mean the same thing. There's no difference. Prefer waking up and prefer to wake up. They are 100% the same meaning. And the reason why I say that is because it's not always the same. Okay, I've got a really famous example. Okay, I've got two here. Try and stop. They don't mean the same when you use them with the infinitive and when you use them with the gerund. So if you're clearing your throat, guys, put yourself on mute. So try to do something and to try doing something are not 100% the same. Okay, they're not 100% the same. Now, the example I like to think of is, imagine it's 50 degrees outside. Okay, we're in Turkey or we're in Dubai. All right, it's 50 degrees. It's really, really hot. And you're all in the classroom. And someone says, there's a window. Okay. So I could say this. I could say, Bibi tried to open the window. Or I could say, Bibi tried opening the window. All right. Now, those two things mean something slightly different. In fact, not slightly different, completely different. They sound the same, but they're not the same. So if I say Bibi tried opening the window, what I mean is this.
But she couldn't. She tried. It was
Let's wait,
difficult.
Layla. Let's wait. No jumping in, guys. Put your hand up if you want to contribute, okay? The window opened, but it didn't help. The room was still hot. Okay. So Bibi got there. She went like this. Dunk, dunk, dunk. Opened the window. Put the little the legs for the window here. Put them on the little hole, and then nothing. There was no breeze. Everyone was still boiling hot. But in this one, Bibi tried to open the window. The window did not open. Okay, why? Maybe it was painted shut. Maybe it was nailed shut. Whatever it is, Bibi couldn't open it. It stayed closed. So we can see that try plus the infinitive means something different to try plus the gerund. All right. Now, I'm not saying that this thing is going to help you in OET, but it's good to be aware that you can't just, when you've got a verb in your mind and you're thinking, oh, I want to follow it with another verb, or maybe it's not as conscious as that. You can't just go bang every time, exactly the same format. All right. There are verb patterns. There are different ones. Stop is a really good one. Now, this is one that does come in to OET. Okay. Mr. Smith stopped to smoke 15 years ago. And Mr. Smith stopped smoking 15 years ago. Okay. They are different. Okay, let's go for Maria. Are you there? Hello? Maria? Maria? Are you not there? No? Okay. Taufik, are you there? I haven't got any other names in the chat box, guys. I'm wasting time asking people. Please tell me if you can't speak. Okay. Muhammad Ali, are you there?
Yeah, sorry to ask you one question.
Yeah.
So you said Mr. Smith stopped to smoke, and
Mhm.
that one is smoking. So what's different?
That's what
And
I'm
how
asking.
do I know is
I'm asking you that. What do you think the difference is, Muhammad?
okay, you're asking me, I don't know. So I was trying to understand very
Okay, well let's look at this one. What does this one mean? Mr. Smith stopped smoking 15 years ago. What does that make you think?
I think he stopped smoking
Okay.
15 years ago, but now he's not smoking at the moment.
Ah, okay, yeah, he doesn't smoke now. He doesn't smoke as a habit
at the moment.
now. Yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, so, and also he has not smoked as a
Since
habit.
then.
Yeah, since then, yeah. Or for, I'm going to put 15 years. I think I agree with you on that one, Mohammed. Okay, so he's healthier now than 15 years ago, probably. Or his lungs are better now. Yeah. Okay. Well, the first one doesn't mean that. The first one is a very strange sentence. And no one would ever say it really because it was 15 years ago. What it means if you stop to smoke is you stop doing
Totally.
one action so you can have a cigarette.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a strange one. Okay, so imagine he was running, Mr. Smith was running a marathon. He stopped to smoke. Okay, that means he's running. Here he is. Da, 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 da. And then he thought, you know what? I'd really like a cigarette. And he stops. He smokes a cigarette. And then he goes off and starts running again. So this one, it's just not correct, is it? It's very, very rare that you would ever say, Mr. Smith stopped to smoke. All right. Maybe if you were telling a little story about someone or why they had a heart attack or something like that. So you could say Mr. Smith was riding his bike to work. He stopped to smoke and then had a heart attack. Possibly, but it's so uncommon, so strange to say it. But this is where it comes into OET because sometimes you're reading someone's letter and they say that when really they meant this. Now, you could imagine that this could be in an OET letter, okay? That someone, you know, maybe they've still got lung problems now, but please note they stopped smoking 15 years ago. That could be in there. And if you get that wrong, it sounds really strange, okay? So this is an example. Does that make sense, Mohammed?
Yes, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So there are times, let's just revise that again, because we do need to get this, I want to get this really, really solid. There are times that we want to follow one verb with another, like, I want to go to the bathroom. So the thing that I want is an action. I want to go to the bathroom. And the way that we follow want is that we follow with an infinitive. But sometimes there are verbs that can be followed with either infinitives or gerunds. Prefer is one of those. And when you follow prefer with a gerund or you follow it with an infinitive, it doesn't change the meaning of this verb pattern. But sometimes when you do change an infinitive or a gerund, it can make a difference. So stop and try are very common verbs in English. You see them a lot. You could easily make a mistake with them. So it's not just a thing which only affects a really small part of language. It's there all the time. Okay. These are not uncommon verbs. Prefer, want, try, stop. They're really common verbs. I would say that they're up there in the top 100 verbs in English. So they're used frequently. This thing that we're talking about today is part of everyday normal English, and it's also a part of OET writing. Erzat, have you got a question?
Yes, Paul, I understand trying, but stop to smoke. Where not very clear. Can you explain again?
Okay, so what if you look at this? Mr. Smith was running a marathon. He stopped to smoke. What did he stop?
Marathon?
Yes.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, he stopped the marathon. He was running, he stopped, and then
For smoking.
yeah, for smoking. So if you think about it, it's a bit like this, isn't it? In order to smoke.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that. So that's another thing that's interesting. So he stopped for smoking.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
he
No.
stopped
Yeah.
for smoking is a really interesting phrase because I understand 100% what you mean there. But that never gets said in English. He stopped for smoking. He stopped for arrest. Okay. He stopped for a cigarette. So prepositions, they play this really strange part in English. We'll talk a little bit about prepositions today. But ultimately this week we'll see how sometimes prepositions, they exist on their own, and sometimes prepositions come with other verbs and other adjectives and other nouns. And it's an interesting one. But in this case,
you.
it's a verb pattern. Okay, there's that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Farid, have you got a question?
Yes, preposition with the phrasal verb and with the normal verb. I mean,
It's generally adverbs with phrasal verbs. But they can be prepositions as well. But they're called particles when you put them with a phrasal verb. They ultimately, there are so many things to say about them. We could do a 6-month course on prepositions. You know, Asia, are you there?
Yes, Paul. Here, Mr. Smith was running a marathon. He stopped to smoke. If we don't have the first sentence, would the meaning be the same, or?
What if I take away he was running a marathon?
Yeah.
My question would be, what did he stop doing?
Okay, so it's not clear in this one.
Well, he stopped to smoke. I would say, well, what did he stop doing? Because I
Okay.
know that
Doing something and stop.
it means that there are if you say he stopped to smoke, there have to be two actions. There's one action that was stopped so he could have a cigarette. But you haven't told me what it is. Yeah. It's very rare. It's very, very rare. He stopped to drink would be more common. You know, if you think about it, in a marathon, he stopped to have a drink, or he stopped to drink, or or a bicycle race or something. Just he stopped to drink, or he stopped to take a photograph. Yeah, it could be something like that. So I'm not saying he stopped to do something is uncommon, but he stopped to smoke is extremely uncommon. All right. Okay, so let's look at some sentences. Yeah, okay. Look at those 4 sentences. We've talked a little bit about some of them. Okay, we've talked a little bit about them, but just have a look for 30 seconds and see if you can pick out what they are. I want you to be able to explain to me what it is we're looking at in each of these 4 sentences. Grammatically, can you describe them? So 30 seconds on the clock. Now. Ten seconds left. Put your hand up if you think that you can describe to me what's happening in each of these 4 sentences. Now, I know Khalid and Farouk, you've seen this before. Layla, you've seen this before. Is there anyone else that's not seen this before and thinks, No? Go on, Layla, you can tell me. Let's have a try.
I can tell you about first, number 1, intend to take the OET test in November. She's planning or he's planning to do that.
Yeah, but what's happening grammatically? I intend, that's subject verb plus
Infinitive.
infinitive, isn't it? Yeah, it's infinitive. It's to plus the basic form of the verb.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, what about the second one? What's the
Doctor
second one?
advised. The doctor is advised its verb,
Yeah,
and losing weight, it's again gerund.
it's a gerund, advised losing. Yeah,
Yes.
so it's a gerund. Yeah, okay, so 2 nice basic forms we've got there. Now it gets a little bit more complicated.
I think I can understand. Advice again verb. To lose weight, it's again infinitive.
Oh,
because lose, to lose.
yeah, but we've missed something out, haven't we? You've just gone like that.
Yes, I missed Mr. Smith because I knew Mr. Smith is the person, it's passive advice to this.
It's not passive. Not yet. It could be passive. The way that we write it in OET would be passive.
Mhm.
Passive here. So what is it instead? Mr. Smith is the
Object.
object, yes, plus infinitive.
Yes.
And then the last one, what do you think about the last one?
Intent on taking, intent on, it's again verb,
Yeah,
and taking is again for me is gerund.
it's a gerund, but what's on?
On is preposition, is preposition.
Okay. Now, the rule here is that every time you use a preposition, okay, whenever you use a preposition, you're going to follow it with a noun, always. And on, you heard me say this word earlier, collocated. On is collocated with intend, okay? And so is to. Both of them are. So in this case, it's intend on. So we've got a verb plus a preposition. Prepositions are followed by nouns. And if you want to put an action, this is why I said action earlier and not verb. Gerunds are noun forms of actions. Shafiq, what about the object in the second sentence? Yeah, the doctor advised losing weight is the object there. Okay, but there's no person, is there? There's no person there. Khalid, yeah.
You mentioned in the third sentence, the doctor advised Mrs. Smith. Is it the object pronoun if you mention him instead of Mrs. Smith, or is it a subject pronoun?
Yeah, we can put him in there if we want.
It's an object pronoun, basically.
Of course, yeah, because you're advising, someone is advising someone, so they are the recipient of that verb.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the four basic patterns. Intend to take, advised plus gerund there. Advise Mr. Smith to lose, and then you've got intend on taking. So these are the basic ways that we follow verbs with actions in English. So it's called verb patterns, but you know, two of them are not verb patterns, really, are they? Because they're followed with nouns. They're followed with.
So all of these are correct.
All of them. Yeah. So for me, if I was you guys coming into English and I'm wondering about this, I'd be thinking, wow, that's complicated. There's a lot of different things going on there, especially considering that sometimes the same verb can be followed in different ways. And sometimes it means the same thing and sometimes it means something different. So it's something which needs to be practiced. We start with the basics. And then as we go through the basics, we do loads of exercises. And as we do loads of exercises, lots of other questions come out and we start to look at it. Okay, so let me show you a table. All right, I'll show you a table. We'll pop that down there for a second. And I'll just show you some common verbs that go in these boxes. Okay, have a look at these. So intend to do, prefer to do, promise to do, refuse to do, want to do, try to do, wait to do. Wait's not very common. Okay. Advise doing, prefer doing, require doing, risk doing, deny doing, try doing. We can see that we've got certain verbs that go into multiple boxes. All right. Then we've got advise someone to do, encourage someone to do, require someone to do, remind someone to do, want someone to do, prefer someone to do. Intend on doing, admit to doing, approve of doing, plan on doing, refrain from doing. You can hear all I'm doing is using the word do. I'm just using the verb do and putting it into all of the different forms that will be followed, that will follow all of these. And we commonly use these verbs in OET. Okay. I mean, we don't really use wait very often. I'll take that one out. It's a bit confusing. We don't use it very often. But these are really common verbs. They're not special verbs. They're not rare verbs. They're verbs that you use all the time. You see them in OET all the time. And you'll be using them quite a lot in your speaking as well.
formal structure for these types of classes.
Okay, so here I am with Edwin. Hi, Edwin.
Hey, Paul.
Hi, nice to see you. Okay, so Edwin, you are an OET hero, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, super. So where do you live?